Many thanks to the channel members, Rafi Ultron and Brian Bierce, for their valuable support to this project. That said, let's begin with the video. Luna asks Ching if he's okay, which the swordsman confirms as he stands up. However, he soon fixes his gaze on the opponent in front of him and questions whether they really are who they seem. It is then revealed that Heimerdinger had used Lepping's knife to defend himself from the previous attack. Then, he wonders if this is the place where the hero entrusted them with their mission. Gigi, who was with them, confirms it and informs them that, in addition to her disciple, the others were also chosen by the hero. Pythias was also there, fascinated to meet more people. So much so that she greets everyone and asks if someone could teach her magic. Gigi thanks Boss for waiting for her. He replies that it was nothing and welcomes her and the Dwarf King for arriving. With everyone gathered, Pythias explains how, with the help of the hero and the Demon Queen, she became the new monarch of the Kingdom of Aristotle. For his part, Heimerdinger comments that they will also collaborate to resolve the crisis of forging S-level weapons in the Dwarf Kingdom, as those weapons can now be mass-produced and distributed at any time. Upon hearing them, Anna quietly wonders if they really are the legendary hero and Demon Queen, and now understands what they meant when they spoke of that person, as it was about that couple. Luna also responds quietly, doubting it's true since she believed they were dead. Then, Pythias mentions that her new model was improved after observing Lepping's mechanical dog. She adds enthusiastically that this is her first time in the outside world and hopes to get along with everyone. Elif notes that it's unusual for someone's identity to be revealed so directly. Meanwhile, Luna reflects for a moment and asks her sister if the name Lepping sounds familiar to her. Uncle Boss tells his daughter that in the past, the Dwarf King used to be a subordinate of the Demon Queen, and that perhaps, having reunited, there's no longer a need to hide his identity. The young elf nods in understanding. Then, the Dwarf King adopts a serious attitude and asks if they still haven't found the hot springs the hero mentioned. He recalls that, according to his memory, 500 years ago, there were many underground springs full of magic in this volcanic region. Boss reports that during those days he was searching throughout the volcanic area, but they didn't find a single drop of water. Elif adds that even her clan's special seeds, capable of detecting underground water 100 meters deep, didn't react at all in that place. Pythias, confused, asks if it's really that difficult to find water in that area. The elf's father, intrigued by her words, asks if she perhaps has a solution, which excites Elif, as she thinks that might be the case. Then Pythias questions whether they know how to use magic and suggests using elemental spells to summon water. Upon hearing her, Luna laughs slightly and comments that she thought Pythias would say something wiser. Anna agrees and adds that the Queen of Aristotle seems funny to her. The young woman, a bit embarrassed, apologizes and asks if she said something inappropriate. Annie explains that if elemental magic hadn't declined, they could use it to solve the water problem. Intrigued, Pythias asks why elemental magic is in decline. The Witch of Paradise informs her that, according to the records, more than 400 years ago, the elemental spirit suddenly disappeared from the hero's continent, and no one knows why. But the young queen still doesn't fully understand and apologizes to those present, as she had never heard of elemental spirits. She reflects that it seems her library's magic books are outdated, and that she still has much to learn. Annie explains that without the blessing of the spirits, elemental magic remains stuck at the intermediate level and can't reach the advanced level. However, thanks to the spirit's disappearance 400 years ago, a magical revolution took place, during which all kinds of new spells began to be developed. She reveals that the most powerful intermediate-level spell of the water element is the water ball technique, but it needs to absorb moisture from the environment, so it's useless in this dry air volcanic region. Pythias understands everything and thanks her for the explanation. She also reflects that it was embarrassing not to know even basic magic, but even so, she won't give up and will strive to catch up with the Demon Queen. Then Heimerdinger suggests an idea. What if they bring the water directly there? He explains that, with Gigi's swordsmanship, they could easily open a channel from a distant lake. The woman replies that she's capable of doing it, but she won't. Anna says she understands her aunt's point and asks if she's refusing so that the three of them do the work. Luna, for her part, informs them that the nearest lake is 10,000 miles away and wonders how they would manage something like that. Finally, Ching says they could give it a try. But Gigi stops them and asks them to reflect for a moment. She explains that altering an entire ecosystem would cause an environmental disaster, affecting many creatures and even wiping out some. She wonders if it's really worth doing just for some hot springs. She also believes that's what the hero really wanted them to understand. At that moment, all the most powerful members of the hero's group realize something. They all come to an undeniable truth. If they focus only on completing the mission for a reward, they will soon forget the hero's original intention and fall into greed, facing severe consequences. Because on the hero's scale, they are only counterweights. The final decision, whether they receive a reward or face destruction, will depend on the choices they make in that encounter with destiny. Annie affirms that what Gigi says makes a lot of sense. She remembers that when the queen and the hero helped her, they did it because they perceived her heart was pure. But she also recalls that when she competed with Gigi and Mr. Boss, she felt her heart beginning to become corrupted. She believes, luckily, Miss Gigi made her come to her senses in time. Heimerdinger points out that the reasoning is sound and that if they sacrifice lives for power, they will be no different from members of the Dark Guild. Then Pythias has a new idea. Why not bring the water through the underground? She explains that they could dig a channel from the sea 100 meters underground, thus solving the water problem without harming the surface. Luna, upon hearing her, seems to mock her, and laughing a bit tells her she thought she'd say another crazy idea. Then she asks that if it's so easy, why doesn't she do it herself? But to everyone's surprise, Pythias responds that she will do it, and asks them to leave everything in her hands. She points to her gigantic robot and explains that with that new soldier of the kingdom, she'll be able to finish the excavation in 7 days. Uncle Boss adds that with more hands working, anything is possible. He mentions that once they get the water, he and Elif will bring seeds from the elven forest to reforest the surroundings. Heimerdinger also wants to contribute and offers to take care of forging the furniture for the Hot Spring Hotel. He even states that he'll make S-class chairs.
Pythias exclaims that she has some new ideas for the hotel design and the hot springs area. Curious, she asks if they could help her collect some volcanic rocks. Annie replies that there's no problem with that task, as she can use her dolls to transport the materials. Gigi also wants to help and says she can take care of cutting the materials and securing the area along with her guild of master swordsmen. Uncle Boss doesn't want to be left out and exclaims that, regardless of the reason, everyone wants to contribute their strength for a common goal. Elif adds that this atmosphere is truly inspiring. Even Heimerdinger appears cheerful and comments that the last time he saw such unity was 500 years ago, when they shared the vision of the hero and the demon queen. Then everyone joins fists and with a cheer declares that they are now truly united. Meanwhile, 1,000 meters underground, wise Manhwa rested in silence. He wondered why Heimerdinger, Gigi, and Jimji's lineage were gathered there. He mentally questions whether they might have discovered his location, but considers it impossible, as the barrier created with his master's magic cannot be detected. He also reflects on the fact that number 24 has disappeared again, and wonders if he too has betrayed him. He thinks that is insolent of him, especially now that he cannot move because he is absorbing his master's magic. Even so, he declares that once he finishes absorbing it, all of them will be an offering for his lord. Meanwhile, in the hero's courtyard, numerous monsters were gathered. One of them launches a freezing ray, but the giant serpent dodges the attack and responds with a deadly entanglement, immobilizing its attacker. However, flaming attacks begin to fall from the sky, devastating the ground with a spell known as Meteor Flame, caused by another monster, or rather, the immortal phoenix. When the bird thought it had won, a powerful attack struck it. It was the work of the Lord of the Mammoths. But at that moment, a being begins to perform a jutsu. The Toad Lord launches his tongue, catching the mammoth and slamming it against the ground, shattering the terrain with its fall. As he retracts his tongue, the toad asks him to get up and continue the fight. However, before they can continue, Someone cleans their hands and declares that the attacks weren't bad at all. The toad, curious to know who said that, turns and sees Wonkai. The little dog comments that it seems the old croaker has followed his idea of being the master of the chickens in the coop quite well. The old toad replies that without the pressure of survival, magical beasts have become lazy, have grown fat, and their flesh is no longer firm. However, since his last report, he ordered them to intensify training to stay in the best shape possible. Then Wonkai informs him that the time has come to pay the protection fee once again. The toad chuckles slightly and comments that more than a protection fee, it could be called a sincere offering to the creator. It is then explained that in the vast meadow of magical beasts, those who are lucky enough to be seen by the creator are called the chosen children. Before the creator, these small beings, by becoming flesh and blood, serve as divine nourishment. But death is not the end. Through decomposition, recomposition, and the exploration of the laws of the universe, evolution represents true eternity. Because when a living being is devoured by the creator and goes through the transformation process, a new being is born from its evolution.
The wise toad informs Wonkai that throughout this year, the average magic level of the prairie of magical beasts has risen from the magical spirit level to the magical sovereign level. Then he asks which ingredient the creator will desire this month. He reminds him that each ingredient gives rise to a new being. For example, those with juicy and tender textures generate a magical bird. Those with firm textures create a creature similar to an eel. Delicious but not intense ingredients produce a being resembling a mammoth, while tasty ones without strong flavor result in a creature similar to a lamb. Upon hearing all that, Wonkai remembers that his master mentioned he hadn't eaten wok bullfrog in a long time. This leaves the wise toad terrified for his life, fearing that this may be his end. Meanwhile, in the hero's house, something is happening, as the queen is enjoying some pleasant massages. She asks the hero to be gentler, since he is pressing too hard. The hero is carefully massaging her feet. At one point, he suggests leaving it for later, but Elizabeth replies that a bit of pain doesn't intimidate her at all. However, she begins to feel something that makes her whole body tremble. Lepping informs her that he hasn't started yet, but she asks if she can mentally prepare first. Nonetheless, she changes her mind immediately and asks him to talk less and start already. Then, the hero explains that in traditional Chinese medicine there is a saying, if it hurts, it doesn't flow. If it flows, it doesn't hurt. He also tells her that the foot massage may hurt at first, but once the energy flows, she will feel relief and comfort. He assures her that he will proceed gradually, from gentle to deep, and asks her not to be afraid. The queen doesn't respond, and Lepping says he will begin with scraping the sole of the foot to relax the entire body. As it begins, Elizabeth can only think about the pain, the itching, and the pleasure she feels through those complex stimuli. Her senses are at their most sensitive. Along with the aroma of essential oils, those stimuli guide her toward transcendence. She concludes that she can see through that trick. It is then that Lepping announces he will begin officially, starting with the Yongquan point, an acupressure point on the sole of the foot. That simple stimulus causes the queen to be sent to the bamboo realm. There, she reflects that the bamboo nodes are hollow, but grow like arrows. Therefore, when channeling magical power, one must leave 30% of space, or else it will become stagnant from excess. She doesn't remain long in that realm, as the hero applies another stimulus, the Taichung point. That transports her to the lotus realm. Observing her surroundings, she thinks that the lotus is born from the mud, but remains untainted. It bathes in clear waters without becoming vulgar. It is also hollow inside and straight on the outside, without entanglement or branching. Once again, Lepping presses another point, the Susanli point located on the leg. This sends her to the orchid realm. Gazing at the scenery, she reflects that even on a cliff covered by 100 meters of ice, beautiful branches still bloom. They don't compete with other flowers in beauty. They bloom alone, releasing their fragrance in the extreme cold. Seconds later, Lepping stimulates the Sanyanjiao point, teleporting the queen to another realm, the lily realm. There she thinks that an orchid in a quiet room emits a charm that moves the heart, and that true power does not always need to intimidate the world. It lies in knowing oneself. Just at that moment, the queen withdraws her foot from Leping's hands. She begins to feel something and slowly transforms, beginning to assume a new form in the dimension she was in, and that was the sacred mode. However, she soon returns to the real world and falls onto the bed. Seeing that, Leping stands up and suggests she rest for a while he goes to prepare dinner. As he leaves, the queen reflects that this was a transition between realms and wonders, if such a technique really exists. Meanwhile, the egg in which Amelia was contained begins to move, and from within, a leg emerges, breaking through the shell.
Now awake and in the house, Leping expresses his joy upon seeing that Amelia has finally hatched. He also asks her to try his dry bullfrog stew, arguing that, after all, protein is the true essence of nutrition, and urges her not to be shy and eat plenty. The little one doesn't understand exactly what he means by protein. At that moment, the queen asks the dragon what really happened the day she went to eliminate the Dark Guild. She questions whether she, having reached the Demon King level, was defeated. Her mount replies that yes, she was defeated. Then she begins to remember and recount what happened during her encounter with Malfoy, who told her that this way, he could surpass her. Visibly furious, she curses him, commenting that he dared to defile her master. Just then, what appeared to be her master begins to emerge from the capsule and activates her powers. At the same time, the old man denies that this is true and claims that Amelia is mistaken. The copy of Elizabeth attacks the dragon, but she manages to gain distance. She observes her opponents and admits that indeed, that is her master's magical power. Even so, she asks how it was done, since her true master is still alive. The old man replies that it was very simple. He confesses that it was his love for her that kept him going, even after tens of thousands of failed experiments. He never believed that his master had vanished. He always thought she would return to his side. He says it was that love that kept him strong until now. Upon hearing all that, Amelia calls him a fool and warns him that she will pulverize him until nothing is left. But before she can act, two shadows, Malfoy's servants, jump in to attack her. However, the dragon invokes her dragon legs, striking her enemies by surprise and launching them far away. The floating television is the first to recover. Upon getting up, it senses that Amelia has Demon King-level strength and asks its master if it can be released to fight. He replies negatively, adding that the dragon's magical power is crucial to his experiment. She must not be harmed, so they must capture her alive. He orders number 24 to take the others away, and the television nods, obeying the command. Meanwhile, Amelia comments that he is being too arrogant. She asks if he really thinks he can capture her, and warns him not to be overconfident just for using a copy of her master's power. Although silently, she thinks that master is a fake, and that now she is just following her true master's orders. Just then, an energy hand emerges from the ground, completely trapping Amelia, who barely manages to wonder when he summoned those arms. At the same time, she reflects that she can't move and admits that even the magical techniques are identical. She curses Malfoy again for daring to create a copy of her master. The old man then reveals that her master was created from the original's magical power. He adds that no one else knows that energy like she does, and questions whether she still believes that this master before her is fake. The copy, for her part, activates her powers again and launches an energy arm to subdue Amelia. The dragon, visibly in trouble, tells herself that the situation is critical. Due to the pet contract, her master's power completely suppresses her, and if this continues, she'll be captured. Malfoy asks her to stop resisting and cooperate to avoid further suffering. But then, the dragon begins to materialize her head, revealing that she has summoned part of her body. She declares that even if she can't attack someone with her master's power, she can destroy this land. With a slight smile, she confesses that she can even annihilate everything. Thus, she begins to activate her world annihilation magic. One of Malfoy's subordinates, seeing the attack, wonders if that is the true power of someone with Demon King level. Malfoy, witnessing it, yells that everyone must flee. At that moment, Amelia launches her attack against the ground where they stood. The explosion completely destroys the place. By then, all the Dark Guild's pillars were already out and somewhat distant. They were astonished by the destructive power, especially the woman from before, who again wonders if that is truly the power of a Demon King. The entire place has been reduced to rubble. Elsewhere, Amelia falls exhausted. She reflects that she was too arrogant and admits she didn't expect Malfoy to use her master's power. Luckily, she managed to use her technique Dragon King's Roar, but upon looking up, she wonders why that land is still there. It is then revealed that the Fake Queen used the skill Forbidden Transcendence. The old man, meanwhile, comments that Lady Amelia's fury is terrifying. Even though they absorbed 99% of her power, her destructive capacity is fearsome. He's glad that the origin of that power comes from her master. Otherwise, he'd already be ashes. He laughs and asks the dragon if she can use that power once more, because if her master absorbs just a bit more, she'll be complete. But the little one is already exhausted, begins to lose consciousness and apologizes to her master, as she failed her mission this time. As she falls unconscious, the mark she bears begins to shine, activating the ability Dragon's Protection. A protective egg begins to envelop her, prompting Malfoy to wonder if there was still a hidden spell. But then he dismisses it, convinced that he can still extract her magic. Back in the present, Amelia confesses that's what happened, that even though she had reached Demon King level, she ended up completely defeated. She looks at her master and admits that she shouldn't still be alive, that she doesn't deserve to be her mount, and asks her to grant her an end. But Elizabeth is busy eating, and when she looks at her, she asks if she's done talking. Lepping asks his queen what she thinks of the food, and confesses that it's been a long time since he prepared that dish, wanting to know if the flavor seems right. Elizabeth replies that it's fine, although perhaps her taste has shifted towards stronger flavors, as she finds it a bit bland with just white rice. Then the hero asks if she'd like him to prepare fried rice, to which she replies yes, and that she's looking forward to trying it. Amelia watches them expressionless, especially when she hears Lepping comment that lately his queen seems to enjoy spicy food, to which she replies it's because of living with him. And in the end, she adopted that taste. The dragon begins to get upset by their relationship and starts calling her master repeatedly. She, however, silences her by stuffing food in her mouth and tells her that she already heard her and will grant her request. Then, all of a sudden, Amelia is transported to a path made of stars in an empty vastness. She wonders where she is and why her master dragged her into her inner realm. She starts walking and comments to herself that, without a doubt, this is a punishment, a lesson from her master. She believes she'll be trapped forever on this endless path to reflect on her failure before dying, as her defeat stained her queen's reputation. She walks in silence for a long time until she grows tired and collapses. She says she'll never see her master again, that she's no longer worthy to serve her. But still, she can't help but miss her. It's then that a mysterious figure asks if it is really her. The dragon, upon looking up, finds a giant toad falling in front of her, saying that the Lord of Beasts, the Golden Dragon, has finally arrived. The great being confesses that the path to Demon King level is not easy, and that the final obstacle is her. The little dragon, confused, asks who he is, and the toad replies that it's normal she doesn't know him, as when he was a tadpole, she was already the lady of magical beasts. But during the years she was gone, he took her place and led all magical beasts. However, unless he defeats her, he cannot be called the new Lord of Beasts. He confesses he already sensed this day would come. That's why he is fully prepared for this moment. He reveals other beasts behind him. And in the next instant, he jumps to attack the dragon while shouting that if he defeats her, he will complete his final evolution and ascend to Demon King level. Amelia, confused, asks him to wait a moment, but it's already too late. The battle has begun. Elsewhere, Lepping reports that the fried rice is ready. But upon returning to the table, he asks what's going on with Amelia, as she seems to be absent. He wonders if she's not used to eating that. The queen replies that it's not that she's just savoring carefully the protein he prepared.